Hey friends, it's Dimitri with Nebraska Streetwear. In front of me here is a shirt that I designed last month for the September drop, and I'm just now getting around to make a video about it. So the purpose of this video, first of all, is not necessarily to promote this shirt or whatever. You can buy it on my website if you want, but really it's to inspire you guys by describing a lot of detail and thought that went into making this t-shirt. And maybe hopefully when you guys design t-shirts, you will be putting, a little bit more thought and creative design into whatever you're trying to make. So this shirt was inspired by the John F. Kennedy assassination, and specifically it's centering around an area, the Grassy Knoll. That was an area where a lot of conspiracy theorists said there was another shooter and another bullet came from there. And it's been, in that whole story of the assassination, that's always been like a big part of it. So what I did was, to begin this t-shirt, I knew I wanted to have that concept, and I wanted this t-shirt to look like the logo of an old shooting range or gun range or a gun club, something like that. So I went and looked up patches and badges from the 1960s and 70s and stuff like that of gun clubs, and I wanted to make it somewhat retro looking but also have a little bit of modern flavor, so it could be, the design would work for multiple generations. And there's some cool details about this. So first of all, it's the color scheme. This orange, I got inspired by looking at clay pigeons. A lot of times when you look at people that shoot clay pigeons in the air, a lot of them are this bright orange, so I really tried to replicate that. And then the yellow and white worked really well because there's a lot of shooting range targets and they use those colors. And it's kind of cool because it's the orange, yellow, and white all work together, so that's why I picked those colors. Then I also have, black on here. So the back is a 4-color print. We have orange, yellow, white, and black. So that's 4 different screens. This specific typeface that everything is in, the text is in, this was inspired by a headline font in newspapers back then. I have a vintage assassination paper from the time period, and the typeface is really, really similar to this. If you look at it on the computer, I think it's called headline font or something like that. Each of these letters is not really perfectly standardized, so there's little nuances and little imperfections in the typeface itself, which is why I liked it, because it's not really visually perfect. If any of you know anything about graphic design, a lot of times people want to make sure everything's mathematically and visually perfect. But back then with design, with newspapers, with typefaces, they didn't have such a thing because there wasn't any computers. Everything had to be set by hand and all that kind of stuff. The design itself, so this is the Carcano rifle that Lee Harvey Oswald was found with. So I just used 2 of those to create the X. So if someone is into the whole assassination story and they're into guns, they would immediately recognize the shape of this rifle and they would know that that's what it means. It's not, you have to have, those little details matter, because I could have put a pistol in here, but that would not make a lot of sense for the theme and story that I'm trying to convey with this graphic. Obviously the date, established 1963, that's just referencing the date when John F. Kennedy died, and the place was in Dallas, Texas. That is where he got assassinated. A couple other details on this. So this larger ring of orange, that is kind of also referencing a head stamp. If you look on the back of a bullet, it has the manufacturer and some numbers usually, and this is reminiscent of that. If you compare these two, it looks kind of like a head stamp, so that's kind of what I was going for. And then we also have a sniper crosshair, which is why that's like that. Typically on targets, they don't have that cross, but I wanted that to be part of it. And then last, another feature of a gun club, obviously a big one, is the shooting range targets, and that's why you have these concentric circles. So it has 3 things going on: crosshairs, the shooting range target, and then the head stamp on a bullet. Now for the back, or for the front, excuse me, I did something a little bit simpler. I think there's pros and cons to it. So in a perfect world, I probably would have liked to have this specific design reprinted on the front, but much smaller, probably around, let's get the tape measure out. I think for this design, 3 or 3.5 inches would work really well to have that reprinted. But the problem with this is purely economical. One thing that you guys might run into when you're designing t-shirts is that you have certain constraints when it comes to having to have a certain profit margin per shirt. Obviously, you can go and print bajillions of colors, put prints everywhere, but at the end of the day, when you're trying to sell a t-shirt, that might be a problem because you're not going to be having enough margin left in sales to do that. Obviously, the cheapest t-shirt that you can ever make is a one color print on the front usually, and that is the t-shirt design where you'll get the most margin. The more colors you add on, it means you have more screens. So for this shirt in particular, since the back has 4 colors, or does it have 4? 5 colors, because it has orange, yellow, white, black. Yeah, so when you add another screen here, so this is an additional screen, the price keeps going up for the cost to manufacture a t-shirt. If I had another version of this but smaller, that would mean that I would need to basically be adding more and more screens, and it would double the production cost. So you can't always do that. Maybe another workaround with this would be to ditch the back print altogether and to just put a small version of that here, or have like an embroidered patch on here. That's another concept that I was thinking of. Maybe in the future, if I redo the shirt and resell it, I will do that. A lot of times I like to do version 2s, kind of fix and tweak stuff. But I think overall this shirt turned out really well. You know, one thing I like about front and back designs is that if you're wearing a jacket or something, you can still be sporting a graphic on the front, but the back is covered. And then when it's better weather like spring and summer, you don't have to be wearing jackets and stuff. You can wear the entire shirt by itself and people will see the front and the back. I always think it's fun to do front and back designs when possible and when it makes sense. But yeah, this is just behind the scenes of this t-shirt and the little design details and stuff like that. One other thing too is that this is the biggest print I've made so far. So it is 12 inches across and 12 inches high. I've always been doing prints that are like 10.5, 11, but recently I've found out, or visually I've been thinking about it, and I think it was a tad too small to do that. I think using 12 inches is definitely a good way to go with making a bigger graphic. So that's something I recommend, but it also depends on exactly what kind of graphic you're using. And I'll make more videos about that because sometimes stuff looks better and smaller depending on what kind of graphic you're using. But yeah, that's just some creative inspiration for you guys to, you know, when you're designing your t-shirts, think about the little details, think about everything that you're doing, and it might make the entire graphic more fun and enjoyable for the customer and for yourself when you're designing stuff like that. If you got any value of this video, or if you have any comments or questions, you can leave them down in the comment section below, and I'll catch you guys later. Thanks.